Okay, for this video, we're going to talk about 12 trucks that are considered unreliable by Consumer Reports. Now, the trucks we will be discussing range from mid-size trucks all the way to HD models, and these trucks have a host of issues. Very problematic depending on the year, of course, and depending on the particular model. Now, there will be engine issues, transmission issues, electrical issues, even issues with the body of some of these trucks. So, a lot of angry and frustrated customers were surveyed and asked questions about these particular vehicles. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 12 trucks that were unreliable and what exactly went wrong with them. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right in. Ford decided to redesign their half-ton truck for 1997. Then they got an evolutionary redesign for 2004. Now, depending on who you ask, the Triton engine is one of the worst to ever be created. It was especially bad in the 2004 F-150. Angry customers have filed so many complaints about the 2004 F-150 that it ended up getting a low 20 out of 100 for reliability from Consumer Reports. So yeah, a 20 out of 100, that's definitely not a good thing. So these angry customers griped about things such as the spark plugs being ejected, the heads warping, the rear axles failing, and torque converters inside the transmission shuddering and failing when under load. Even loads as simple as getting up to speed from a stop. Even though this half-ton has been one of the top-selling trucks for numerous years, many people say the Triton engine was unreliable and just a huge mistake overall. Next up, we have the Toyota Tundra. Yes, how surprising a Toyota made this list. Toyotas have the reputation of bulletproof reliability, but that's just not always the case with each and every model. So here we have the 2001 Toyota Tundra, and unfortunately, it only ranked 52 out of 100 in reliability. Some owners had good ones, but a lot of owners also had bad ones. These angry customers griped and complained about the transmission slipping and failing, but that's not all. As a bonus, these angry customers also got cooling system problems, not to mention the O2 sensors that had to be replaced prematurely. But the O2 sensors were not the only issues reported. People also mentioned that despite this being a Toyota, mostly all of the exhaust system components fail faster than they should, from the pipes all the way to the catalytic converter and muffler. Well, at least there's only one Toyota on this list. That brings us to the next one, the Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon. These came out for the 2004 model year, filling in for the much-loved S10 and Sonoma too. At first, it looked promising, but that wasn't the case with certain models. In this instance, we're talking about the 2008 model. The inline 5-cylinder engine was not as good as General Motors had made it out to be. The truck had a noticeable shudder while driving, and although it sounded like a cool concept, the inline 5 engine had to work extra hard just to get the truck up to speed. Numerous complaints have been reported against the 2008 Colorado and the 2008 Canyon. Unfortunately, this dropped the reliability score down to 47 out of 100. Frustrated owners mentioned that the engine had major issues, as did the cooling system that was supposed to keep it operating at an average level temperature. Of course, this did not apply to every single 2008 Colorado, but the customers who did have an affected model had to deal with those frustrating issues. Speaking of Chevy, let's go ahead and talk about the Silverado. This was a rough time for General Motors, and it was a rough time for the Silverado because their reliability did not match expectations. But the 2005 was probably the roughest year for the Chevy Silverado, and not just because of one or two small issues. No, there were many issues with the truck that were reported from frustrated owners. Consumer Reports gave this truck a 40 out of 100 for reliability, an obvious below average score. The engine and transmission both have issues, as do the cooling systems, just like in the Colorado we discussed earlier. There were brake problems too, not to mention electrical issues. So yes, this was without a doubt a low point for General Motors and the Chevy Silverado. Next up, we have the Mazda B Series. Well, Mazda really did their customers dirty, because for 2003 and 2004, the B Series truck had more problems than the owners could handle. It was so bad, this thing earned a super low reliability score of 19 out of 100 from Consumer Reports. Sure, this truck might have been on the lower tier of pickups, but some of the people that actually bought these things were quite angry with what they had got. The major problem areas listed were the cooling system. Transmission and clutch mechanisms were a common area of trouble. Customers also mentioned that anything and everything to do with these engines were not so good either. In 2011, Ram separated from Dodge and became its own brand, but the first couple of years were a struggle for the truck. Nowadays, things are much better and this truck has become one of the top in its class. But back in the early 2010s, things were a little different. Reliability was so low that people kinda just stayed away from not only Ram, but Dodge and Chrysler products in general. The Consumer Reports score for the 2013 Ram 1500 was only 15 out of 100. Common problems were the cylinder heads. Those would fail and crack. There were even fuel system issues and problems with the four-wheel drive system. Speaking of a 15 out of 100 score, that's exactly what Consumer Reports gave the Jeep Gladiator. This reliability rating applied to the 2020 model year. Owners of this Jeep said that even though the engine has plenty of power, the drive system is prone for failure. The other major problem areas include the electrical system components and suspension. I guess they're right when they say just emptied every pocket. Now let's talk about the GMC Sierra. The 2017 Sierra only managed to get a reliability score of 16 out of 100, which isn't very good. Owners reported major and minor problems with the transmission and the drivetrain. They reported that the transmission would shift hard, especially in cold lower gears. The transmission was also reported to give owners trouble, even when the truck is under light loads. Since the problems were erratic and never seemed to happen the same way twice, the simple solutions given by GMC dealerships did not always seem to fix the issues. We have another Chevy Colorado on this list, and this time it scored a whopping 5 out of 100 in reliability. Owners had a lot to say about the Colorado, and they were not all good. The main problems listed were the transmission, the electrical system, and the body's integrity. The transmissions on these seemed as though they needed to be replaced and rebuilt more often than expected. The electrical system problems are mostly centered within the infotainment center, which at times goes blank. When driving down the road, the body makes all kinds of noises, and the weather seals do not keep moisture out like they're designed to do. And I can personally attest to this. I worked at a government job and we had 2 Chevy Colorados, both the 2020 model year, and both of the transmissions had to be built twice in both of those. Heavy-duty trucks, such as the Chevy and GMC 3500 HD, are built to take on just about any job. And as you guys are aware, the Ford model that competes with those is the F350 Super Duty, which is by all accounts a great truck for the most part. However, Consumer Reports says that the 2019 model can be problematic. So much so, they gave this truck a quite pathetic 4 out of 100 for reliability. The main trouble spots include the engine and transmission. To make matters worse, owners reported problems with the electrical system, the body, the suspension, and the drive system. Consumer Reports mentioned that although these trucks are typically solid, the 2019 model is definitely one to avoid. The 2021 F-150 Hybrid also got a 4 out of 100. Buyers of this pickup had some not so nice things to say about it. Some of the most problematic spots listed are the transmission, drive system, electrical components, and body integrity. And finally, we have the Nissan Titan, and this one got a comical 1 out of 100. As far as customer surveys suggest, the motor has no issues other than what would be expected from a truck, but the rear drive axle has been reported as a severe and consistent problem. Once the axle oil leaks, the back end will lock up, leaving angry customers with a hefty repair bill. Now me personally, I still see plenty of early first generation Titans on the road, and I'm sure a lot of these trucks have high mileage. So I'm sure that Consumer Reports score with the 1 out of 100 only applies to a few bad apples. And yes, I did say only one Toyota made this list. And honestly, the new Tundra was going to be on this list, but ironically, it managed to get 70 out of 100, which is slightly above average. This truck did have a few handicaps, and it was mainly involving the engine. Toyota recalled 102,000 2022 and 2023 Tundras and Lexus LXs. This recall was because of machining debris left in the engine during manufacturing. The debris could cause the crankshaft main bearing to fail. However, the recall only covered the base iForce engine, not the iForce Max Hybrid. But despite all of this, they mentioned that a well-maintained Tundra can last up to 250,000 miles, while some owners report 300,000 miles or even more than that. Without a doubt, the easiest and cheapest trucks to maintain are the older Ford, Dodge, and Chevy, which were produced with simple designs. Long before computers and electrical systems took over, the motor was simple enough to work on by yourself and common enough to find parts for. I myself own this Ford Ranger that you see here on the screen. It's a 94, has over 200,000 miles, and it's reliable, and as a bonus, it's very easy to work on. Alright, so that does it for this list. Of course, these issues do not apply to each and every one of those models, but it affected many of these models. So if you're one of those customers that just so happen to have a good example, hey, good for you. Alright, so as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.